Heaven Sent.
Here on the channel, we've been known to analyze gaming for much more than its playability. When it comes to gaming in the early to mid 2000s, it's really not hard to see why. Aesthetics are a hot topic these days, with many finding an infatuation with the way our world once was. And while this phenomenon could easily be chalked up to the common nostalgia, there's a good reason as to why this bygone era has been making itself known in present day. The answer is actually quite simple. It's because of how unbelievably cool everything used to look. From the 90s cool aesthetic found in films such as The Matrix, the hopeful futurism used in everyday advertising, to the Gen X soft club look being used for some of the era's greatest album art. It was like everywhere that you turned, there was something interesting to see, like everything was just flowing with character. And with the fashion trends of that time being so heavily inspired by technology and futurism, it only made sense that video games would find themselves becoming a lot more stylish. So in today's video, I thought it would be fun to go back and explore the more superficial side of 2000s gaming, analyzing the iconic character designs from that time period, and even the fashionistas that were behind many of these games' creations. So if that sounds fun to you, join us on a nostalgia-filled trip to the past as we explore the unforgettable fashion of 2000s gaming. A lot of iconic studios have came and went throughout the history of gaming, but none have been able to capture the essence of 2000's attitude in extreme sports, quite like the legendary team at EA Big. Being a subsidiary of gaming giant Electronic Arts, the EA Big division was created with the aim of making stylish, arcade-style sports games for the home console market. They would often take the traditional mechanics of a sports title, simplify the gameplay, and focus more of their efforts on creating something, flashy. This formula resulted in some of the 2000's most memorable series, and not only for their gameplay, but also for their unique design choice. So let's begin with their most beloved series, that being SSX. The SSX series is one that was carefully crafted to be as fun and memorable as possible, sporting a catalog of impressive snowboarding titles that still hold up in present day. Now it's not hard to see why these games are so revered. I mean, the insane level designs and stylish tricks were more than enough to earn the series a spot in the Sporting Games Hall of Fame. But I strongly believe this series would have never carried the level of charisma it had if it weren't for its lovable cast of characters. Now I remember actually seeing this game in action for the very first time, and the first thing that crossed my mind was just how cool each of the characters looked. Like most titles from the EA Big umbrella, they weren't a fan of the typical uniform. So these shredding fanatics would take the characteristics of your everyday snowboard wear and turn up the style factor to max volume. With a tasteful mix of urban streetwear and Y2K culture, there was enough baggy jeans to supply a Janko factory, but there was still plenty of attention to detail in making each one of these characters stand out. Take for example, Simon. He was unapologetically edgy and a possible cousin to the late great Wayne Static. Simon is a perfect example as to how they blended the essence of 2000's culture into a wicked snowboarder. The spiky hair, piercings, the straitjacket inspired outfit, it's like if Shaun White was in a nu metal cover band or something. And to 10-year-old me, Simon was the coolest guy ever. But he wasn't the only one that was worthy of notice. You also had the lovable Kaori, sporting a stylish ensemble of bright pink tones and subtle nods toward Japanese heritage. Eddie Wachowski, with his larger-than-life hair and personality, and lest we forget, the unstoppable heartthrob, Elise Riggs, may have very well been responsible for many coming-of-age moments back at the time. Anyways, the SSX series is just one example of the dope character designs that could be found in 2000's gaming. And while extreme sports are typically known to be expressive, it tends to be a bit more strict in the world of professional sports. But that's what separated the Street series apart from the rest. The Street series was basically an urban influence take on the NFL, NBA, and FIFA titles of that time, which the majority of were being created by Electronic Arts. But with EA Big being the rebellious stepchild of the company, they weren't looking to follow in the footsteps of Madden or NBA Live. And much like the SSX games, it had really shown in the character models. NBA Street Volume 2 was a sheer classic in my household, a game in which I recall many nights spent in the company of friends, hoping to grind out enough points to unlock the rapper Nelly and the Saint Lunatics, and trust me, it wasn't because they were the best characters in the game, but because they just looked so dope. 2000's fashion was heavily reliant on hip-hop culture at the time, so even if you weren't a hip-hop fan, its influence was still sure to be found somewhere in your closet. The Street series took this love for hip-hop culture and allowed it to run freely within the veins of its creations, making for some of the most memorable characters and experiences I could recall. I mean, it's just a well-known fact that the Game Breakers wouldn't have hit the same if it weren't for all the cool outfits the characters were rocking, and this formula continued to apply for all the Street games. But taking the influence of street culture, combining the likes of extreme sports, and taking the studio's love for hip-hop guest appearances into full swing, what could EA Big possibly have done next? Well, I'm sure you all know where this is going. If it were up to me to discuss my personal favorite character designs and styling from the entire catalog of big games, I'd have to give it to none other than the Def Jam series. While the beloved sequel of Def Jam Vendetta was technically created by Electronic Arts proper, we're still going to include it. Now, it's no secret that part of a rapper's literal job is to look cool. So with a hefty cast of hip-hop inspired brawlers and real-life hip-hop legends, this game was destined to spawn some of the 2000's most memorable outfits in gaming. So let's take a look. First, let's start with a personal favorite, my boy Redman, also known as Doc. Sporting an oversized jersey, sweatband over the do-rag, and the crucial addition of some baggy jeans, I can't even tell you how many times my mom had to pry a white do-rag out of my hands at Walmart back in the day, just because I wanted to look like Doc. And looking back on it now, she definitely did me a favor. Now how about a character that truly doesn't get enough love? I'm talking about Snowman. I mean, the guy owns a clothing store. Of course he's gonna be fly. And even though he was nowhere near as impressive in combat as the other characters, just based off his looks alone, he still found a place in my daily rotation. Some other great mentions for unique style would also be Tech, sporting a bulletproof vest with some tasteful camo and Nikes to match, Joe Budden, showing that cool guys don't need to see when they're serving a beating, and of course, the classy and well-respected D-Mob, showing that he's both a gentleman and a gangsta. Light on the gentle. So as I had previously stated, EA Big had aimed to create a line of titles that capture what made the 2000s so damn memorable. It was about expressing yourself, showing a little attitude, and not being afraid to bend the rules. And with the rebellious nature becoming so contagious in the legacy of these games, it's no surprise that people are still continuing to revisit them in present day. It's strange to think that a game studio were able to influence my taste in clothing so much as a child, but it's obvious that they were looking to market these games to a certain demographic, and boy, did I happily buy into that. But before I start going on a tangent about Freakstyle or some other great game in EA Big's catalog, we still got plenty of other studios to revisit. So let's head on over to the beloved studios at Namco and see just what kind of fashionable entrees they were cooking up for us in the Y2K era of gaming. Created by Masaya Nakamura in 1955, Namco was one of the most influential game developers of all time. Known for their work in pioneering some of the most iconic arcade games to ever exist, the evolution of this once colossal studio was nothing short of incredible. From its humble beginnings as an entertainment/department store, all the way to making video games, there was a lot to be said about the way Namco carried themselves in the entertainment space. But one thing that had always stood out to me most in their work was their ability to create characters that have stood the test of time. Just think about it. When discussing the top 3 faces of video gaming history, I'd have to argue that the most iconic of all the mascots would be none other than Pac-Man. But while the Packster wasn't known for his fashion sense as much as his insatiable appetite, their future relationship with Sony would soon prove to spawn some of their most stylish work. Now this is a topic that I've actually went into full detail with before, in my charming aesthetics of Namco video. But this time around, I'm more focused on which Namco characters had stood out to me the most, you know, for their unique appearance. So on that note, I think it'd be fitting to start with my favorite Namco creation of all, that being the Tekken series. The PS2 era of Tekken is my personal favorite for a variety of reasons, but I'd also be the first to shamelessly admit that it's mostly in part to its visuals. With Tekken Tag Tournament being a launch title for the PS2, I'm sure a lot of my fellow old heads can recall just how iconic this game's opening visuals were. Yeah, there's just something about the wonderful mix of 2000s CGI and beautiful character renders that never fail to pique my interest. But as a longtime fan of the games on the PS1, getting to see the characters in this level of quality for the first time was actually breathtaking. But it wasn't just the opening visuals that left a lasting mark on me, as much as it was the characters themselves. So let's begin our rundown of its unforgettable fashion. Starting with Eddie Gordo. Man, never in my life did I think a sleeveless crop top could look so badass, but if anyone could make it happen, it was Eddie. Now how about Lee Xiaolan? When I was a kid, I genuinely wanted to look like Lee, and as a 32-year-old man now, the urge is still the same. But where Lee was truly looking his absolute coolest, in my opinion, was in Tekken 4. Beginning with his more business casual look, the purple and silver tones of the outfit mixed with Lee's snow white hair have always made for a great combo. And dishing out combos in said outfit would never look as cool from anyone other than Lee himself. I mean, the outfit honestly looks like something you could either wear to your high school prom or find on clearance at a Burlington coat factory, but it just worked so well in the game that it quickly made Lee one of my most played characters. But taking a quick look at his other fit, that being one that's more suitable for a nightclub, now I can see why he's snugly resting in my top 3. And it's not because of the bulge, I swear. Everything about this fit is just so appealing to the eyes. The shirt is like Romeo and Juliet if Romeo chugged a bottle of blue glitter and puked all over himself. And the pants, I mean, they certainly look tight enough to deliver some nice crane kicks. But once again, as much as I feel like this outfit shouldn't have worked, it just does. But hey, I've always said, fashion is just wearing ugly clothes with confidence, and I still very much stand by that. But there's few outfits in Tekken that could ever top this next one, which once again came from Tekken 4. Oh yeah, you know him, you love him, Jin Kazama. A shiny purple hooded tracksuit with gilded flames and red sneakers. Just think of how crazy that sounds for an outfit, but damn does Jin do an amazing job at rocking it, which may be his greatest look of all. I mean, if you think about it, literally almost all of the other Tekken games have a lot going on in their cover art, but Jin's outfit in Tekken 4 was so dope that they were just like, yeah, just put Jin in his purple tracksuit on the cover and let's call it a day, boys. It's a hard one to beat, but I could honestly sit here all day praising just how well designed the entire roster of Tekken characters are. You've got Raven, Hwoarang, and lest we forget the man himself, King. You'd have a hard time finding a character in this series who fell victim to some sort of generic trope, which is one of the many reasons that I believe this series has continued to stay relevant for so long. Now, we've spent a lot of time on Tekken thus far, but what about other franchises under the Namco brand? Going back to the topic of console launch titles, Ridge Racer was a staple in the original PlayStation. Sporting 3 dimensions, a groovy soundtrack, and plenty of speed, it was a critical success almost immediately upon its release. But it wasn't until the 1995 release of Rave Racer that the series debuted its beautiful mascot, Reiko Nagase. This mysterious race queen has appeared in almost every single one of the Ridge Racer titles, usually found posing on the cover art or charmingly smiling at the camera in the opening sequence. Namco have previously stated that she was originally designed to be a number girl, but her unique appearance and contrast to the game's racing elements made her an interesting choice for the game's atmosphere, and in all honesty, it works very well. Reiko's appearance has undergone many different transformations throughout the history of the franchise, but her elegant style and effortless beauty have always remained a constant. There's something about her style and mystery behind the veil of 2000's visuals have always made her something of wonder for me as a fan. It's almost as if she represents the very spirit of racing culture of that time. You know, the whole young, wild, and free thing. But to think of how the Ridge Racer series would have fared without the presence of her, I feel as if it would have been a very different story. Now, these series are just two very personal examples of stylish designs that have always stuck with me from Namco. There's still so many other great ones. Critical Velocity, a much lesser known Japanese exclusive, is well remembered for its stylish characters and beautiful cutscenes. Also, the PlayStation 2 light gun shooter of Vampire Knight, with its split banes and Matrix style trench coats, sure to appease any enthusiasts of late 90s and early 2000s style. But ever since the merging of Namco and Bandai, I can't say with confidence that things have ever hit the same. But at least they were able to go out in style, you know what I mean? But I think it's time for us to move on to our next studio. And for this one, it comes from the kings of survival horror. So shuffle your bingo cards and get ready to rock as we explore the more fashionable side of Capcom. You know those video game characters that you would aspire to be as a young kid? Yeah, well for me, there was a lot of them. And while it did take some time for me to realize that I'll never have the strength of Kratos or the well-spoken demeanor of Claude Speed, he has such a way with words, Capcom was giving me hope that I could one day achieve the level of badassery that was found in the Resident Evil series. I mean, just think about it. These games really do have it all. Unnecessarily flashy combat moves, a plethora of nonchalant protagonists, and that oh so stimulating intrigue of a will they won't they scenario. Oh brother, just make out already! The Resident Evil series has always done a fantastic job in delivering an attractive presentation, which as you can imagine is greatly in part to its attractive cast of characters. Take for example Jill Valentine. Man, talk about a first crush. This girl had me feeling things a virtual slew of polygons should never be able to achieve. So why don't we take a moment to analyze what may have been my favorite look from her in Resident Evil 3, Nemesis. Surprisingly, there have actually been quite a few theories surrounding this design, with many claiming that before all hell broke loose in Raccoon City, Jill was on her way to a nightclub, or that her outfit was designed to allow her to move more freely, you know, for maximum zombie ponage. And as entertaining as those theories may be, I personally think that they just wanted Jill to look great, and boy did she ever. Sporting a royal blue tube top, black miniskirt, and a plain white sweater wrapped around the waist, this iconic look is often regarded as a fan favorite. And whether it's just the nostalgia talking, or the fact that it suits her character so well, I couldn't have agreed more with Capcom's design choice. Now how about everyone's favorite genocidal maniac, our boy Albert Wesker. Wesker's been known to rock a variety of different looks throughout his many appearances in the franchise, but the one that's always stood out to me the most is his Matrix-style outfit found in Resident Evil 5. Now if I were to guess, Wesker seems like a pretty intentional guy. You know, all about the details. So the checkered pattern on his trench coat is a very nice touch in making the outfit pop, but it does kind of spawn the question, how should a man that's hell-bent on world domination dress? I'm going with Wesker on this one. For those that can remember seeing the baby-faced Leon Kennedy in Resident Evil 2, to his testosterone-fueled transformation in RE4, it was pretty jarring to say the least. Whereas this nervous rookie was just clumsily uncovering a government conspiracy years prior, to nonchalantly spin-kicking European farmers, whoa there guy, we watched him go from a boy to a man in a matter of a few years, and his iconic look is one that remains undefeated to this day. What did it take to be an action hero heartthrob back in the early 2000s, you may ask? Fingerless gloves? Check. Oversized cargo pants? Check. And a dramatic set of bangs for good measure. How you doing? It's safe to say that Leon was mogging the hell out of the Lost Plagas virus, and this outfit only made his unnecessary action poses hit that much harder. But before I spend this entire video confessing the fact that Mr. Kennedy has me doubting my sexual orientation, did I say that out loud? Let's move on to another one of Capcom's greatest creations, the Devil May Cry series. Given the fact that this series is one of my favorites of all time, it's actually surprising how little I've covered it here on the channel. But now that I've got my opportunity, I'd like to begin with who I find to be one of the most underrated women in gaming, that being Lady. This mysterious beauty is best known for her independent nature and oversized arsenal of weaponry. But how about her keen fashion sense? You've got the cropped white button-up, short plaid skirt with the matching holster, and those devilish red boots to tie it all together. And don't forget, the spiky bob cut with the fashionable scar. Lady is a visual feast for those who love a good character design. I just wish she could have been the second playable character in DMC 2 rather than Lucia. Sorry to all my Lucia fans out there. But if we're talking Lady, then we've got to mention Trish as well. Trish looks like the kind of girl that if she stepped in gum, she would have you eating it from the bottom of her shoe. And as a Quentin Tarantino fan, I'm not mad about that. But going back to her very first appearance in Devil May Cry 1, why the hell did she enter Dante's shop like this?
Whoa, slow down, babe.
Now despite her inability to operate a door, she's still got one of the coolest designs found in the series, especially with those stylish Y2K inspired spectacles. Ooh la la. things begin to heat up even more with her appearance in Devil May Cry 4, and while she looks as if she just came from backstage at a Seether concert, the groupie vibe is definitely working for her. I mean, if I was a demon, I'd let her slay me all night long. But we can't bring up the likes of Devil May Cry without taking a stylistic approach to the Hardy Boys of demon hunting. So let's begin with the vigilant vanquisher himself, known as Virgil. If you couldn't tell by now, in the early 2000s, the bigger the coat, the bigger the dick. So it only made sense that our boy Virgil would sport the biggest and bluest trench coat that one could find. But with his weapon of choice being the Yamato katana, I've always sensed a good bit of Japanese influence in his outfit. Now how about everyone's favorite, the Prince of Pizza himself, Dante. Like I said, the bigger the trench coat, the bigger the hog. And when this man is swinging his around, you better get out of the way. Now Dante has seen a variety of changes throughout the series. Some were subtle, and others just plain unspeakable, with his first three designs being the most iconic. In Devil May Cry, he sported a far more sophisticated appearance, almost as if he was out of Castlevania or something, while in the sequel, he took on a more mysterious look to him. While I would initially picture him sucking the blood out of unsuspecting nightclub goers in Prague, the DMC2 look is about the only thing positive going for that unforgivable excuse of a sequel. But as you all know, they made up for that tenfold in the third edition. Now this is where I find the peak of Dante's appearance. The rockstar haircut, washboard abs, and the unforgettable coolness of that blood red trench coat. Button mashing looked better than ever in this outfit. And if my parents would have allowed me to dress like this at my senior prom, I probably could have taken a better date than my sister. I don't have one, by the way. But in the realms of Capcom, it's no secret that their talented team of developers and designers have been able to create some of the greatest looks of 6th-gen gaming, with a slew of great games such as Chaos Legion or God Hand, all following in the same footsteps of our previous mentions. But now for this next studio, it's one that's lesser known for its fashion and more so for its great storytelling. But given the fact that it spawned one of the most badass series in gaming of all time, I just figured we'd have to stop by and take a look. So get ready to try on your most fashionable sneaking suit and head down to the dance floor. We're going to the wonderful studios of Konami. When looking back on some of gaming's most influential releases, Metal Gear Solid stands tall among the top ranks. Critically acclaimed for its storytelling, stealth mechanics, and flawless delivery in breaking the third wall, the MGS series has been dropping classic after classic upon its PS1 era inception. Now as a kid, I had the strategy guides for both MGS1 and Sons of Liberty. Both these books had contained an astonishing amount of character art, and it was at that point that I realized just how well designed each of the characters were. Yoji Shinkawa, the man responsible for creating these iconic designs, is best known for his distinct blend of realism and manga style. While the Metal Gear series is heavily influenced by real-world politics and military themes, the series is still well known for its fair share of supernatural elements. And Mr. Shinkawa, being the genius that he is, does a wonderful job in representing the quirks of each character. One of my favorite characters of all time being Sniper Wolf is a great example of this. The low-cut camouflage bodysuit, the subtle black choker, and accessorizing with a pack of trained killers. It's a design that's simple yet complementary to her femme fatale persona, one that's really unforgettable and one that just aged incredibly well. Another great example in the ladies of Metal Gear being the apathetic princess known as Fortune. I mean, it must be difficult having to coordinate a suitable outfit around that behemoth of a weapon, but Fortune has no problem in doing so. This time sporting a US Navy certified bodysuit, oversized military jacket, and a perfect shade of lipstick. This girl was dressed to banish fools to the Shadow Realm by day and be walking the runway by night. I've always felt that the character design of Fortune is by far one of the most unique in the series, and I'd love to see what they do with her in a future remake. There's also one more lady from the game I'd like to discuss. And going back to the tanker level of MGS2, the scene between Snake and Olga Golukrovich is something that I had watched a million times as a kid. Yeah, I never really had a memory card, but going back to those moments, I always remembered thinking, wow, that's a pretty cool outfit she's rocking. I mean, baggy jeans were all the rave back in the early 2000s, and much like trench coats, you wanted to have the baggiest jeans possible. So as for the likes of Miss Golukrovich, she was definitely the most fashionable on that ship. Just check them pants out. Now there's obviously a lot of great looking female characters to be found in the MGS series, but how about on the male side of things? Revolver Ocelot is known for a lot of interesting moments throughout the series, especially this one.
This needs to stop now.
But it's not often that you hear someone praising him for his remarkable fashion sense. Now for a guy that is so obsessed with 6-shooters, it only makes sense that he dresses like an Old West cowboy, right? But he's not the only character that allows his personality to shine through his style. Not really too sure if we can call this an outfit, but I feel as if the design of Gray Fox fits snugly into the Y2K aesthetic of Metal Heart. This aesthetic is often characterized by abstract shapes and metallic textures, so I'd still go as far as to say that Gray Fox is about as fashionable as a futuristic ninja could be. Not to mention that full body camo is sure to guarantee you're always matching. Pretty nice. Now I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our two biggest celebrities within the series, Raiden and Snake. But as badass as these two knuckleheads can be, I wouldn't say fashion has ever been their strong suit. But after realizing that there are literal runway models wearing trash bags in present day, Snake may have really been onto something with those cardboard boxes. But anywho, the Metal Gear series has always been one that I found a lot of interest in visually. But this next offering from Konami is probably the last you'd think to see in a video about fashion. Dance Dance Revolution, being known for its work in popularizing the genre of rhythm-based gaming. But if you take your attention off the multitude of flying arrows for just a moment, you could usually find a stylish set of characters dancing along with you on screen. Now there are hundreds of different characters to be found throughout this series, but man is it a hard choice as to which one looks the coolest. For example, you've got Emmy, with her signature beanie and blue hair, Rico, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Naruto Uzumaki, and my personal favorite, Rage, who looks as though he could have served as an extra in the SSX series. The actual definitive number of characters in this series is well into the hundreds, as there are plenty of playable and non-playables to observe. But for a game that's so focused on music and dance, I gotta give kudos to Konami for putting the effort into feeding the game's atmosphere. But they kinda go hand in hand, right? Like music, dance, fashion, looking cool, it all makes sense. But you know what never made sense to me? Why the characters in Silent Hill are so well dressed. Well, I guess when you think about it, they're all just kinda going about their days before being thrown into a literal nightmare. But it's rare that you'll ever see a character in this series that is just chilling in some sweats or rocking one of those funny slogan t-shirts you'd find at a Spencer's Gifts. I mean, if you scour Reddit posts, you'll find an entire army of people that are willing to let James Sunderland suffocate them with a pillow, which I hear he's got great bedside manner. But if there's anyone from the series I'd let deprive me of oxygen, it'd probably be none other than Miss Eileen Galvin. Brrr. Like damn girl, I never thought a cast and makeshift eye patch could ever look so good, but I'd purchase the entire Band-Aid factory just to get your number. Now, Heather Mason is obviously another great choice. I think we can all agree her sleeveless vest, mini skirt, and messy bob cut are the perfect attire for facing the traumatic demons of your family's past. But who in the hell taught her to control the recoil of a machine gun so well? But going back to the subject of fashion and gaming, this next studio may have very well perfected the presence of 2000's style in many of their games from that era. So without further ado, let's head on to the wonderful folks at Sega and explore the visual stylings that made their games so unquestionably timeless. There are few things that I truly love in life. Number one, being video games. Second, my undying love for great music. And third, would have to be extreme sports, even if my 30-year-old knees are beginning to hate me for it. So with the Jet Set Radio series being a stylish combination of my life's greatest interest, it comes as no surprise that I've been a longtime fan of the series. The Jet Set Radio feature having been included with my childhood Xbox, I remember firing this game up for the very first time, only to be completely stunned by its unique art style. The characters, of course, being a huge part of the game's overall charm, are a testament to the fashion sense of 2000's futurism, so much so that the game had even spawned its own category of aesthetics, known as Shibuya Punk. This style in question is heavily influenced by graffiti culture and extreme sports, kind of blending the lines between streetwear and skater culture. It also borrows a lot of influence from the cyberpunk and Y2K futurism aesthetics, making its overall design incredibly nostalgic. Ryuta Ueda, the man who created the original concept drawings for the series, had found a perfect partnership in regards to Team Smilebit. Smilebit were the developers who decided to take Mr. Ueda's drawings and bring them to life using cell shading, a practice that was seldom used before the inception of the Jet Set series. Safe to say, the result couldn't have come at a better time. The overall sentiment of youth in the 2000s had weighed heavy on the concept of self-expression and futurism, with the colorful cast of characters in JSR doing an amazing job in representing that same vibe. I mean, it really had it all. Colorful and unique hairstyles, equally unique outfits, and a custom pair of rocket skates being adorned on the feet of each character. If you were a skater in the 2000s, this is most likely how you wanted to dress, and the characters in JSR represented this style better than any game at the time. But that's only the tip of the iceberg for what Sega were cooking up in this divine era. The Sonic the Hedgehog series is by far the most beloved of all Sega properties, but you wouldn't typically cite them for being fashionable now, would you? Well, in a way, it's kind of hard not to. Much like the JSR series, a lot of fashion in gaming was being heavily influenced by real-world examples. So just like the aggressive inline skates and oversized jeans of Jet Set, Sonic Adventure 2 was looking to pay homage to another addition in 2000's fashion, that being soap shoes. Yeah, remember these bad boys? Well, the good folks at Team Sonic sure do, and it wasn't their original idea for the game, either. In the late stages of the game's development, Sega and Soap Shoes had agreed to a partnership, resulting in everyone's favorite blue hedgehog to now be sporting a fresh pair of grind shoes. Many of the game's levels can be found with soap branding on walls or billboards, and the overall grinding mechanic was truly a game changer for the series. I mean, just think about how different Sonic Adventure 2 would have been if this partnership had never happened. I honestly think it was a great move for both parties involved. I just wish they would have kept this 2000's design alive for the present day games. It was my personal favorite. Now this is the 2000's we're talking about, and with arcades being at their absolute peak, I'm pretty sure that Sega were going to be getting their hand in on some of the action, right? Well, of course. And as a matter of fact, they had created one of the best arcade racers of that time, which, funnily enough, isn't a technical racer at all. Crazy Taxi is well known for its larger-than-life personality, shameless brand endorsements, and its unforgettable soundtrack presented by The Offspring. But how about the overall style and appeal of its characters? Let's begin with Axel. Spiky green hair, the floral button-down and low-rise dickies. Forget Crazy Taxi, this is more like Crazy Town. And all jokes aside, I've always loved the character model of Axel, but a close second would have to be BD Joe. Having made an appearance in Sega All-Stars Racing, I think it's safe to assume that he's become a staple character for the brand. But what about an assessment of his outfit? He kinda gives me the vibe of a chill guy working at Pacific Sunwear in the 2000's, or maybe even a surf shop. Funnily enough, it seems as though the pattern on his bucket hat matches that of Axel's button down, and the long sleeve under the t-shirt is a staple for any 2000's fashion guru. I just hope to see more of Joe in present day Sega games. But lastly, we gotta give it to our girl next door, Gina. She kinda gives me the vibe that she would be the bass player slash singer in an all-girl rock band, but her charismatic nature and sweet ride have always made her one of my favorites. So as you all can see, Sega were doing a great job in merging the real-world fashion of the 2000's into some of their best games. But before we move on to our 6th and final studio for this video, I thought it would be kind of fun to showcase some of the most stylish developers and game directors from that time. So without further ado, let the fashion show begin. Saving the best for last, I couldn't be more excited to discuss what may be my favorite studio in terms of fashion and character design. While it's without a doubt that they've been able to create some of the most memorable storylines and gameplay experiences, the work of one man by the name of Tetsuya Nomura is greatly responsible in what made the majority of their games so memorable. I don't know about you guys, but nothing more than a glance at images such as these, and I'm instantly transported back into the comfort of my childhood. Reminiscing on the days of pre-2000 CGI, peaceful soundtracks, and some of the coolest characters you could ever lay eyes on, it's safe to say that most Square games aren't just meant to be played, but rather to be experienced. So now that I finally have the platform to fully nerd out on some of my favorite looks from this studio, just know I came prepared. So before we get into the obvious choice of the Final Fantasy games, I'd like to focus our attention on one of Square's lesser known offerings, that being the Bouncer. I covered this game a couple of years back, briefly discussing how it's one of the best bad games that I've ever played. Sure, 80% of your time playing this game is spent watching cutscenes, with the other 20 being its frustrating combat, but due to the Bouncer's incredible character design and atmosphere, this game carries a sense of charm that just couldn't be replicated. Now we're here to talk about fashion, and for all my Y2K aesthetic lovers, this game has some of the best that I've seen. So let's begin with everyone's favorite Sora cosplayer, that being Sion Barzad. I know I've said that I wanted to be a lot of characters in this video so far, but Sion's outfit is one that I've seriously used for inspiration in a lot of my real life looks. The spiky hair, the chains, the dog street jacket with the shorts. I remember laying eyes on this game's cover art for the very first time, and just being so enamored with how dope this guy looked. But he's not the only one in this band of brothers that knows how to rock a fit. Next up, we've got Ku. What I love most about Ku's design is his plethora of tribal tattoos. Now I know that tribal tats became somewhat of a meme after a while, but there's no denying just how badass this guy looks. Throw in some baggy camo jeans and a sleeveless vest for good measure, you got yourself one hell of a bouncer. And lastly, the big brother of the trio, Volt. Faux hawks were a real tough look for many back in the day. Throw on a leather jacket and enough surgical steel to put you on a no-fly list, now you're serving a stylish beating, Volt Kruger style. Now going back to the subject of Sion's outfit, I'm sure you're wondering what Dog Street means. Well, funnily enough, this wouldn't be the last time it would appear in a Square title. And given the fact that Sion looks an awful lot like one of Square's most iconic characters, it looks like we found the perfect segue. After finally playing through the lengthy series of Kingdom Hearts titles, I can now say with confidence that this is my favorite series in gaming. Everything about these games, from their extensive lore all the way to the iconic theme songs, they greatly represent the mystery and wonder that was presented in 2000's gaming. And with their legacy being the byproduct of such a great time period, you already know the characters were going to be dressing fly as hell. Addressing the elephant in the room, that being Sora's resemblance to Sion, it was actually Mr. Nomura's idea to use Sion's foundation to create the character of Sora. Sporting similar color schemes, hairstyle, and his own set of chains, Sora couldn't have been more well designed for the soldier he grew to be. And while I like to believe that Sion will somehow manage a cameo as Sora's edgy older brother in KH4, I'll just keep appreciating both their designs for now. But even with this series being heavily centered around Sora, he wasn't even the one that was dressing the hardest in my opinion. My boy Riku had one hell of a glow up. Going from a kid that looked like he would take all your action figures at recess, to looking like a guy that would steal your girl at the skate park. His demeanor and overall aesthetic from KH2 is by far one of my favorite character designs in all of gaming. Now can it get any more adorable than Kairi? Being the embodiment of friendship and innocence, you just want to give her a hug and tell her how great of a job she's doing. Despite loving her previous looks from KH1 and 2, I actually share the unpopular opinion that her best design was found in number 3. I don't know if it's the fact that she's finally coming into her own or that she's wielding her own Keyblade, but I just couldn't help but to appreciate her visual progression throughout the series. Now I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one of the most tragic but wonderful characters, that being Roxas. Now nothing can make a grown man ugly cry quite like the lore of Roxas, but even with this character meeting such a tragic end, it's safe to say that he was looking stylish the whole way through. Which brings up Aqua, Terra, the entire Organization 13. I mean, come on! Even those coats are stylish. Despite this being somewhat of an unpopular opinion, I really like the design of Cypher in KH2. I mean, that beanie goes hard. As you can see, Tetsuya Nomura really poured his artistry into this entire series, but given the fact that I could spend the whole video on this franchise alone, I think it's time that we move on to Square's top dog. Having over 3 decades in the industry, a never-ending series and plenty of memories, it's time to talk Final Fantasy. Like, seriously, where do I begin? Well, since we're talking about the fashion of 2000s gaming, I guess that it's only fair that we cover the games of that era. But if you don't think I'm going to mention Squall's outfit for 1 second, then you're absolutely nuts. Now that that's out of the way, I'm sure you know where we're going to next. And while I've covered this game in a handful of other videos on my channel, I'm happy to finally get to express my love for its fashion. In my opinion, Final Fantasy X and X-2 had the perfect atmosphere for a 2000s game. With their tasteful blend of futurism and fantasy concepts, the fashion sense of the characters weren't too far off from the present fashion trends of that time. You had Riku, with her Christina Aguilera style of dress, Yuna, with her favorable pop star appearance in X-2, and don't forget, Pain, who honestly would have made a great couple with Ku. But as for the likes of Tidus, Auron, and Wakka, did they really have to go this hard? I mean, especially Auron. All I know is, when I turn 35, I better look just as cool as him. Overall, it's hard to nail down this studio to just a few franchise and characters, because literally everything that Square has touched have proven to be timeless in the art space. I've actually covered this charming aesthetic in a previous video, so if you're interested in seeing a deeper dive, go check that out. But as for this one, I've got to say it's been one hell of a great ride. Please comment down below any characters or series I hadn't mentioned. The Christmas season is upon us, and I've got some great holiday themed videos in the works. But as the holiday spirit begins to overcome us, never let your spirit for gaming fade away. And remember, you're never too old to be dressing cool. So take care, guys. Hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay blessed. Peace out, guys.